Well, great to see you all again. This is our home church, and when we come to Lakeside, we are back home. And good to see all of you. Now, as I look around, I see some people that I have known for a long, long time. I see some people that I've known for a period of time, and some faces I haven't seen before at all. So it's time to get to know each other just a little bit better, a little history here. My family moved from Rochester, New York to Clearwater in 1969. I was 15 at the time, so if you're good in math, you have already figured out my age. In 69, we moved here. Now, how many of you were part of then Grace Baptist Church, because that's what it was before it was Lakeside Community Chapel, on North Hercules, just before Greenbrier and all that? How many? Stand up if you were a part of that group back then. Okay, yes. No, see, keep standing, although I know it's hard at this age. No. Okay, this is some of the people that I've known for a long time. Now, how many of you were a part? Now, keep standing. Oh, wow, okay. How many of you were a part of the church when I graduated, when I went to Bible college from 73 to 76, sent here by Lakeside to go to Columbia Bible College, and you were a part of that church at that time? You can now stand up and join that group. Okay, not many in that age. Now, how many of you were a part of the church in 78 when you commissioned Karen and me to go to France? You were part of and we were here at Lakeside at that point. Of course, Karen was there. She went with me, yes. Okay, that's good. I'm glad she remembered that. That's very encouraging. All right, now I'm seeing more familiar faces. This is good. Okay, now how many of you were a part of the church in 94 when Karen and I had to come home for her emergency medical situation? And you received us so graciously when we came back in 1994. Yes, okay, now this is good, okay. How many of you had joined the church between 94 and 98, the year we went back to France? You were part of the church in 98 when you recommissioned us to go back to France. Excellent. Where were the rest of you? Excellent. Yes. Okay, you can sit down. All right. Well, as you can see, just why I wanted to do that is to show that any church is like that. When missionaries are sent by a church, it's a group of people that sent us out back in 78. Lakeside is our home church. You commissioned us to go. You gave us your blessing. You gave us your calling to go to the country of France to start churches in cities that had no gospel witness. And by God's grace, that's exactly what's happening. And Karen and I are now on church project number 6. 5 churches already planted. Number 6 is brand new church. All those groups meeting thanks to you sending us to France and allowing us to do that ministry over there. We are really encouraged to have you as our home church. We are blessed to have you as our home church. A few things. When I see this, the global outreach, it's printed every month. We get that email every month with a deadline. We need your prayer and praise requests by such and such a date. If for any reason we forget, we get a reminder that the date has arrived. So I really appreciate that, and I've seen this in a number of your homes, and I appreciate that. It's the last Sunday of October, and Lakeside has a wonderful gesture that you do every year called Christmas in October. And we want to thank you on behalf of all the family missionaries at Lakeside. You are very generous with that. That is a tremendous encouragement to us every year, the Christmas in October offerings that you give to us to allow us to have a way to celebrate Christmas above our own means, and we want to thank you for that. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of all the family missionaries there. So thank you so much for all that you do for us. Now, one other minor announcement, and then I'm going to get on to the story I want to tell you, is we did go back to France 18 years ago after Karen's wonderful healing, and we were able to go back and continue our ministry. Obviously, at that time, we weren't quite sure if this was going to be a long-term thing or not, given her health care issues. So we stored a lot of stuff up at Lakeside, the school. There's a big storage room up there, and those of you who have ever ventured into that mammoth storage room and see stuff all over the place, for the last 18 years, there have been a number of items marked Davis. Well, that's our stuff that's still there, and obviously needs not to be there anymore. So we are going to take care of that. It's going to get moved one way or another to Tennessee, to our son John Paul's house, the week before Thanksgiving. And we're looking for a way to get it up there. Now, we have one possibility, tentative possibility, but if anyone would know, or if you'd like to take a wonderful drive up to Signal Mountain, Tennessee, just outside of Chattanooga, we will feed you and take care of you for your time there. If there's a way to get that stuff up there, it's too big for the SUV that people are letting us use during these 2 months. But it's not enough for the U-Haul truck that I would have to rent in order to get it up there. Anyway, if you could be of help with that, just let us know and we'll talk about that. But that is not the purpose of sharing with you this morning. In 2010, 6 years ago, we were here right at Lakeside. We had just moved to the city of Pontcharra. Pontcharra is a city tucked between the cities of Albertville and Grenoble in France. Now, I don't know how good you are in French geography, but you have heard of Grenoble, Winter Olympic City of 1968, Albertville, Winter Olympic City of 1992, so you get an idea of the environment that we live in, and the two valleys that converge from those two cities come together at the city of Pontcharra. Pontcharra at that time had no evangelical church of any kind. Actually, the entire valley didn't. A valley of 80,000 people that still had no gospel witness, a way that people in those cities could come in proximity to hearing the gospel in a way that they could understand. We told you that in 2010. We told you that we have just moved from our 4-bedroom house to our 2-bedroom condominium downtown Pontcharra. All of our stuff is stashed in our living room, dining room. When we go back, because we had come back for Julia's wedding and also to see you and our other supporting churches, we asked you, would you please pray that when we go back to France, we could see a new church started there. Now, why did we pick Pontcharra? Well, actually, back in 1999, the closest church to Pontcharra, well down the valley, almost at the city of Grenoble, had been praying that they could start a new church in the city of Pontcharra. The vision was there. They started doing evangelistic Bible studies. One family actually moved to the city of Pontcharra in 2005 to purchase their first home, to raise their family. But one specific reason they picked Pontcharra was they believed that one day they could be a part of starting a brand new church in that city. Pontcharra, if you could see geographically, it was obvious that a church needed to be planted there to reach out to the entire valley. The problem is that they ran into obstacle after obstacle after obstacle to get this new work started. They were able to reach out through evangelistic type meetings, and people were coming to know the Lord. But every time they got to the point of wanting to launch the ministry, of actually establishing a church, they ran into a big obstacle, and that was the lack of a permanent meeting place. Now you can say, well, why didn't you just start the meetings in homes? Well, that doesn't work in France. France, you have to do it in the French way, to respecting the French culture. And the French are very skeptical of anything that looks like a house group, because in the French mind, a legitimate group has its own physical building with its address, a place that you can say, oh, that is where that group meets. And a home church type thing is always looked as a cult or something that's from a cult. And they do not respect that at all. So you're actually taking a step back in reaching the French if you try to do a house church. So we definitely needed a place to meet. In 2007, this small group of believers, and I'm talking maybe 3 families with a couple of other people coming, in 2007, they boldly looked for a place to meet and found 4 places that they could buy by faith with limited resources. They found 4 facilities that would meet that need. All 4 times, it got blocked by either the city or the county authorities. It got blocked for reasons that really do not make sense. It was not fair, and yet all 4 times they found that what they had tried to purchase just wasn't going to work. They tried other things, and to the point that by 2009, the group was so discouraged, they actually said, okay, we are tired, we have put up the best effort we can, and they decided to stop all meetings of any kind for 1 school year. They were just going to take, they called it their sabbatical. They were discouraged. They were tired. And no Bible studies, no worship services, no outreach. They were going to go back to the other churches in Grenoble or even further away and just take some time to reflect. They were that discouraged. And that was the year, 2009, that Karen and I learned about this group at Pontcharra. We were near the Albertville Church. Pontcharra being a 35, 40-minute drive down a different valley. We knew about this work. We knew about these people that wanted to start. So we went and talked to them and asked, what would it take to get a church started here? And we saw that these people really had a heart to have their own church, to reach out to a valley that had no church. But they needed help. They were discouraged. And so we decided, okay, we're going to, by faith, we're going to move to Pontcharra and see what we can do to get this church started. And that's the context that we shared with you in 2010. Slowly but surely, we got to get to know the people. Now, when we went back to France in December 2010, first thing we had to do, obviously, was unpack all those boxes, get everything set up. When you move into an apartment or a condo or any kind of building, residence in France, there's nothing installed. I mean, there's a sink, maybe light bulbs. You come in with all your stuff. It's not in America where you come in and you see everything's already set up, and of course you can move it around as you wish. So we had to literally set up our new home in this condo in Pontcharra. And as we did that, we thought, okay, now this group is discouraged. We can't go too fast, but we can't go too slowly either. So we got them together for Bible studies every other week and started to share the word with them, get to know their stories. They could hear our stories, and basically just start to get to know these people and pray that God would open up a door for us in Pontcharra. And we did that from January through June of 2011. It was basically a time to get to know them and for them to get to know us. But I also knew that the key element in getting something started in that city was to gain the hearts and the goodwill of the city authorities. That's the case in any church in France. After 30-some years of experience, I knew the key was getting to know the mayor and having him have confidence in us. In France, the mayor is king of his little kingdom. If he doesn't want you there, you're not going to be there. If you do not have his goodwill, you're going to have a very, very hard time. And he had been mayor for 26 years already at Pontcharra. So he had his kingdom and well-founded. Now, interestingly enough, by God's wonderful providence, our apartment complex, our building, is right across the parking lot from City Hall. So it's not at all difficult to go make an appointment with the mayor. I made my 2-minute walk over to City Hall. I found the secretary to the mayor. I introduced myself and said, I am a new resident of your city and I would like to make an appointment with the mayor. Now that is very typical. Anyone can make an appointment to go see the mayor in France. And she said, Mr. Davis, I have noted your request. The mayor is a very busy man, and we will see when and if he can see you. And I said, well, that'll be fine. I live right across the parking lot. You just let me know. That was the beginning of January. In February, I asked where we were on my appointment. I was reminded of how busy he was. March, April, May, June, always the same visit, always the same answer. Mr. Davis, we know about your request. The mayor is a very busy man. I hope he is, because this has been 6 months now that I've been asking for an appointment. But I also knew we were coming to the month of July. Now, in the French mind, the end of June is very, very important, because that means the 2 months following are July and August. Those are vacation months in France. Nothing gets done in France in July and August. Everyone is on vacation. Everyone gets 5 weeks paid vacation. Everyone takes that plus all the other religious holidays and all of that. Do not ask to have anything done in July and August. If your car breaks down, your mechanic is on vacation. I mean, no one is there. So I knew that if I didn't get that appointment at the end of June, I'd be talking another 2 months to September. So I went to City Hall. I said, is it possible for me to have my interview before the mayor goes on vacation? Because he is going on vacation. Oh, yes, absolutely. He'll be leaving on vacation next week. And Mr. Davis, we will do everything we can to get you in to see the mayor by the end of the week, and we will call you. The secretary called me to express her deep regret that the mayor had done everything in his power. But no, he was not able to see me. And so I said, well, when does he get back from vacation? Well, he'll be back the first week of August. Now, I looked at my agenda very quickly. Fortunately, we would be home. I said, great. I'm sure he doesn't have an appointment then. And that was obvious. He wouldn't see anyone in August. And she said, well, no, yes. She was... Obviously, she couldn't tell me he was busy that day. So she said, well, I suppose he could see you then. Thank you very much. August 4th, 9:30 in the morning, I have my appointment with the mayor. August 4th comes along. I go to City Hall, basically deserted. The mayor walks down the hallway. He's obviously just back from vacation in short sleeve shirt. Usually he has a suit coat on. This time just short sleeve shirt. He's relaxed. He sees me sitting there and says, oh, so you're my appointment. Yeah, well, okay, come on in. So we sit down and have our little talk, and then we get down to business. He says, okay, now who are you and what can I do for you? And now remember, he's been the mayor for 26 years. He knows about these 4 building purchase possibilities and all that. And I said, well, Monsieur Biche, my name is Paul Davis. I'm the pastor of the Evangelical Protestant group of your city. And as soon as I said that, it was, this group. And I said, but I live in your city. He says, really? Where do you live? I said, right across the parking lot. We're in the top right condo. Oh, so you live here in Pontcharra? Yes, yeah. We are residents here. We live here in Pontcharra. That changed something for him. No longer was it this group down in Grenoble trying to start something in his city. It was somebody that actually lived there that was talking to him. So he said, okay, so... And I said, well, sir, you know that we need a meeting place. Now, another thing you have to know in French culture, there's total separation of church and state in France. It's similar to America in that regard. But the city is responsible to supply a suitable meeting place for every religious expression. That's the city's responsibility to allow every religious group to have a suitable a meeting place, a safe meeting place to exercise their religion. So he has a responsibility to our group. But the way they get around that is there's so much demand that the mayor will say, well, I don't have enough rooms to offer everyone, so in order not to show any prejudice, we won't offer anything to anyone. And that's how they get out of that. And that was basically the argument they were using. So I said, well, sir, you know that we need a suitable meeting place. But I also know that there's really nothing available out there on the market. And to help you and to help us find a suitable solution, I do know that you have a small community room on the outskirts of town that can seat 60 people legally. Once you put 45, you're getting a bit crowded, but you could put 60 people in there. And from my observation, is not being used on Sunday mornings. Would it be possible to give you time and us time? Could we use it just once a month to do our religious service, and that will give you and us time to find a better solution down the road? He graciously accepted that. He said, you'll have to write a formal request, and I'll submit it to the people there, but yes, that could work. So we wrote the letter, and we got one Sunday a month, September, October, November, December 2011, we held our very first worship services in that small little community room outside of town to get the work going. The people were encouraged by this, and they said, well, maybe we could extend the request, but ask for every third weekend. Let's just take it slowly but surely and ask for every third weekend. So I went back to City Hall. We requested made another letter from January through June of 2012, every third weekend. And as long as it wasn't being used by someone else, we were able to do it. And now the group is starting to grow. But we were still faced with the reality that, yes, this is a nice room, but it's not going to be what we need to get this church planted. We need a suitable meeting place. Now, you might remember, some of you in this room will remember that it was right in the middle of that segment there. Now we're into 2012. I should have said it was January through June 2012 we're doing at this rhythm. We were here at Lakeside for your missions conference in 2012. It was March. And I shared that much of the story with you, that's where we were, but we really needed our own place. And you were forming a team of people to come over and to encourage us in France. And Joe and others came over with the team to visit us, to pray with us, to encourage us. And what an encouragement that was. That was a highlight of our ministry in France, to have people from Lakeside with us there just to encourage and help. Very limited in what they could literally do because of the French language and the French culture of what you can do and all that kind of stuff. But they came with a servant's heart. They came with a spirit to pray and to encourage and to help. And that they did. We went up. Now we're in a valley of the Alps, so obviously you go either direction, you're going up. And we went up to these the opening hills before the big mountains, and I could show the group there. Look all the way down that valley. If you look as far as you can see down there, yes, there is a church way at the end of that valley. Look down this valley here. Look as far as you can see, and yes, there is a church way at the end of that valley. Look behind us and that valley going in that direction. And yes, that's the city of Albertville. There's a church there. But in between those three, there is nothing. Would you pray that one day we could have a church in this city? And that's exactly what that group did. They prayed and prayed. They walked through the marketplace and prayed that God would open the hearts of people. And one group walked around City Hall and prayed that God would open up the heart of the person in that building that had the capacity and the power to open that door for us for a meeting place. We didn't know who that person was, but that's how we prayed. Now, they walked around that building. The walls are still standing, but they walked around the room and asked, God, would you please open the heart of the person in that building that can open that door? And that was July 2012. The team went home. You came back here to Clearwater. 1 month later, after those times of prayer, it's City Festival at Pontcharra. We have an outdoor festival. They elect a queen. We have parades. It's outdoor, big, good time with our twin city in Italy. And one of the things and of course we go to that, and we had learned also, I should say, that I had been getting to know slowly but surely the mayor by just appearing at public events. There would be events where all the war memorials, there's a time for World War I, World War II. One interesting event is during the first week of January, there's a big city meeting where the mayor tells you how wonderful it was to live in his city the previous year, thanks to his wonderful leadership, and all the wonderful things we're going to live the following year, thanks to his continued leadership, especially with an election year coming up. And, you go to these things, and it's a great time. You meet everyone in the city, but because I had been shaking his hand and getting to know him more and more, he knows who I am now. And you have to picture a room somewhat like this, but I mean packed. All the seats filled. And when it's over, people are all squirming to get out towards the refreshments, but also you want to make sure you shake the mayor's hand, that he sees that you were there. It's a very important procedure to go through. And of course, Karen and I are snaking our way through to do this. He had just introduced the principal of the high school, new principal there, and that man was standing next to the mayor. As we were getting just past him where I could extend my hand and make sure that he saw that I was there, he stopped and he said, "Oh, sir," and then he looks at the principal. He says, "May I introduce you to our pastor and his wife?" and introduces me like that. I thought, whoa, that was nice. I was not expecting that. Of course, he doesn't come to our church, but I mean, it was interesting that he acknowledged who I was. That, to me, was a very significant step forward. So I had that kind of relationship already with him. Now, we come to this city festival. And the activity marked on Sunday morning to start the day was the Mass at the Catholic Church, which is an interesting contradiction because it's a city event, separation of church and state. What the city sponsors has nothing to do with the church, but it's a tradition for over 100 years, and the Catholic tradition is still there even in the city events. So we went that morning at 9 a.m. to the Mass to show our support for the city. Now, the priest whom I gotten to know, a young man, very dynamic man that was sympathetic to our cause, he was opening the service. And you have to imagine, the Catholic Church is dying in France. So there's fewer and fewer people coming. And he was delighted to see, once a year, as usual, the place is full because it's a city event. And he couldn't help but just say something like, well, I notice we have our larger than normal attendance here this morning. I see that the mayor is here and his whole team. But then he said, but I also noticed that Pastor Davis and his wife from the Evangelical Church are here, and we thank them for attending this morning too. And then he went on and they performed the Mass. Now at the end, it's everyone coming out of the building, and of course the mayor is there shaking hands with everyone, and we of course shook his hand too. But I looked, and there was this lady standing there. I knew who she was. I knew her name, Madame Tozzolini. I also knew that she was his first assistant. And I also had observed during 2 years that she was always next to him, handing him papers, pulling him in one direction, reminding him of something, putting things together. I thought, boy, she's the organizer of this team. That's obvious. And interestingly enough, she's just standing there, casually waiting. And I thought, I've never introduced myself to her, so I might as well. Now, in French culture, you just don't go up to somebody and start talking to them. You say, bonjour, madame, bonjour, monsieur, and that's probably the end of the conversation, and that's already a major step forward. The next time, you might say, bonjour, madame, comment allez-vous, how are you doing? And she might respond in kind, and you've made it to the next level. And this just goes on and on and on. That's just the way it is in France. So I'm expecting, bonjour, madame, bonjour, monsieur, and that would be it. So I went up to her, bonjour, madame. She extended her hand, so she said, bonjour, monsieur. But then she kept my hand and said, in French, obviously, she said, permit me to say that I'm pleased to see you here this morning. And then she let go of my hand. That was the end of the conversation. Now that was, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And that just sort of, I'm amused about that. I thought, well, that was friendly, and walked off and the rest of the day. That just started working in my mind. Why did she do that? She doesn't know me at all. Now, she's been his assistant for 26 years, too. So she knows about the whole story about the attempts to have a building. Anyway, that's the month of August. Nothing happens in August except lots of fun and vacation and all that. And then September comes along, and I'm still thinking about that welcome that she gave to me. So I thought, well, things are back in swing again. Maybe I should make an appointment with her. So I went to City Hall, made my 2-minute walk over to City Hall, found her secretary, introduced myself, and I said, I would like to make an appointment with Madame Tozzolini. And why would you want to see Madame Tozzolini? Because I have an administrative question that I think she could answer, and I would like to talk to her. Well, she wouldn't want to see you. Well, that may be, but she doesn't even know that I want to see her, so I don't know how we could determine if she would want to see me or not. Well, I already know she wouldn't want to see you. Well, ma'am, you might be correct, but we won't know that until you ask her if I can see her. So I've done this for 30-some years. You get used to this after a while. If you could just ask her if I could see her. All I'm asking you to do is ask if I can make an appointment with her, and if I can, I'd be grateful. She said, well, this is a total waste of time. Got away from her desk, walked to the one door next to hers, which is Madame Tozzolini's office. I hear these two voices in the background. They're mumbling whatever, and she comes out and looks at me with this look of, you can go right now. Like, who are you? Thank you. So I walked in, And Madame Tozzolini is sitting there with her desk full of files, and she's the administrator of the city. It was so obvious. So I walk in, and we do our protocol, what little chit-chat you have to do to get the conversation started. And so now I can tell it's time for me to tell her why I'm there. And I said, Madame Tozzolini, I have been a resident of your city for 2 years. And from my observation, you are the one that runs things here in the city. She smiled and she said, you could say it that way. Yeah. And I said, I said, Madame Tozzolini, you've been here for a long time. You know the request that our group has made for a meeting place. Now, thank you so much for that public meeting room that we have on the outskirts of town. That's been good to help us start, but you know and I know that that's not a permanent solution. And I need to aggressively look for a permanent meeting place. But I also know that if I find something and go through all the paperwork and all the administrative procedures, and in France it's a lot, if I go through all of that, that file is going to come to your desk. And you have the power to authorize it, and you have the power to veto it. So to save you and me a lot of time, if I find a place that I think might work, can I just come to you and say, what do you think of this building or this property or this place? If you say, don't even think about it, well, that saved you and me a lot of time. She said, all right. For that question, you can come and see me. I will tell my secretary, yes, please tell her. She protects you very, very well. And she smiled at that too. Yes, she does. She said, if it's that question, you may come directly to my office and we'll talk about it. That was the month of September 2012. The month of October, 1 month later, I'm walking downtown in our quaint town of Pontcharra, and I had noticed for a while that what used to be a small grocery store, and I should have computed this into square feet, but 90 square meters multiplied by 3.3. Anyway, in a small place where maybe 80 people could sit comfortably with 2 small rooms in the back in horrid shape on the inside. It had been deserted for a period of time, but it was right downtown. The outdoor market actually starts in front of that building. That's how beautifully placed it is. No parking around it or anything, but 85,000 euros, about $100,000. We'd have to do a lot of renovation in it. You could seat maybe 80 people if we were really creative of how we did it. But it was for sale. It was visible. It was in the heart of the city. And I thought, well, before we go any further, I need to go see Madame Tozzolini. So I went to her office. I saw her secretary, and she said, yes, just go. And I walked into Madame Tozzolini's office, and I said, Madame, what would you think of the Supérette, the Casino Supérette? That's the little supermarket. And of course, she knew immediately what building I was talking about. She said, would that meet your needs? I said, it'd be a good start. It would definitely get us off to a good start. Well, if you want it, I won't oppose it. You're allowing us to buy that building. Yes, you can have it. But now, Madame Tozzolini, and another thing you had to know too, that one restriction to keep us out of the city that they had imposed in 2007 was that they were going to charge us, in addition to the property, whatever we found, a parking fee of $10,000 per parking place based on the number of people that could come to the church. And they don't have to do that, but they can. And I said, Madame Tozzolini, there's no parking there. She said, the parking fee. Let's not talk about the parking fee anymore. Let's not worry about that. I told the people, the believers in Pontcharra, I have just had a meeting with Madame Tozzolini, miracle number 1, that she is going to allow us to buy the casino, miracle number 2, and that she's no longer going to impose the parking fee, miracle number 3. The Lord has answered prayer. You got our prayer letters. Yes, finally, after all these years, this is it. We have our building. Now all we have to do is go through all the administrative stuff, but yes, we have it. We are so happy. You probably heard the shouts of joy here in Clearwater from Pontcharra when that happened in October 2012. Well, that led us to November, where we had to have people come in and inspect the walls, make sure it was solid and make sure all that, which brings us to December. Nothing gets done in France in the month of December because that's the month where Christmas and New Year's is coming. You need the first 2 weeks to prepare for your 2-week vacation, and then, of course, you have your 2-week vacation in December, so nothing gets done in December. You wonder, how do you get anything done in France? That is an excellent question. Anyway, January comes, January 2013, and it's time for us to actually sign the papers. We needed, the inspectors came and all that. Now, we were buying this from a major supermarket chain. It would be like buying it from Publix here in Florida. The big office in Paris. This is one of their little supermarkets on the outpost of Pontcharra type thing. You go through notaries in France. They have their notary. We have ours. They negotiate. They do all this kind of stuff. It can take 3 to 6 months. That's just life. You know it's going to take that long. But before we can even start that process, we have to sign a formal purchase agreement. And our notary said, no way are you signing that agreement until we get the homeowners, what would you call that? The homeowners policy. There's apartments on the top floor. It's the bylaws for the homeowners thing, to figure out who owns what, if the roof has to get replaced, who pays what, that type of thing, and basic inspection papers. Now, these are 2 documents that everybody has to supply at any real estate sale. This is very basic stuff. So all this company in Paris has to do is send us these 2 documents. We would read them, we would sign them, and we would purchase this building. 5 months later, we still do not have the paperwork from this company. The realtor is calling me every day asking why we're not buying the building. And I said, don't talk to me, talk to the seller. We're waiting for the papers. We'll gladly buy this building, but we can't until they send us this basic paperwork. We got phone calls that they couldn't find one of the documents. They got another one that, it just went on and on and on. Now we're at the end of May. The people are discouraged again. The believers are going, well, here we go again. We even have the city behind us this time, and we can't even buy a place. What is wrong with this city? Are we ever going to have our own church in the city of Pontcharra? And they were very, very discouraged again. We thought, we've got nothing to lose. Let's just go out and expand our search. The next day, we were in contact with a realtor who said, well, it's interesting that you come by today because tomorrow the funeral home right across this parking lot is going up for sale. It's bigger than the supermarket. It's in far better shape because they've redone everything on the inside. It's one room slightly bigger, and it's going up for sale tomorrow. And if you want, I'll give you first option on it. It's 170,000 euros, just over $200,000. Well, we could look at that. So we got the church leaders together. This was just not far at all from that supermarket. It was on the parking lot where you have the post office and the tax office and this funeral home and the realtor, and this other building was there. And he shows us the funeral home. And we're talking about it, thinking 170,000 euros, and well, okay, maybe we could swing that. And he's listening to us, and he says, excuse me, you want to start a church, right? Well, yeah. Well, this isn't big enough for a church. At least I would hope it isn't big enough. Don't you want something bigger than this? Well, of course we would like something bigger than this. Well, then why don't you buy the department store just 2 doors down, right next to the post office? That's 7 times bigger than this. Oh, yeah, we'd love to buy that, but that was one of the 4 buildings that the mayor had turned down in 2007. That was one of the ones they had tried to buy with the $10,000 parking fee, and all that kind of stuff. And he said, well, why can't you buy that? I said, well, the city told us in 2007 we couldn't buy it. And for what reasons? Well, it's in the flood zone. Oh, the flood. No, they rezoned. A couple years ago, the work was done on the river. It's next to the flood zone, but it's no longer in the flood zone. No, that's been changed. Yeah, but there was also the water leak issue. That was solved by the homeowner. That was resolved about 3 years ago. Well, what about, no, that issue, yeah, that was a problem back in 2000. So every time I told him the reasons, he said, oh, no, that's changed. That's no longer an issue. And I said, well, in any case, the city wouldn't let us buy it. He said, well, who are you in contact with in City Hall? I said, Madame Tozzolini. He said, well, let me give her a call. picks up his phone, direct line. He obviously knows this lady very well. Hello, yes, Madame, and they do their little chit-chat. They know each other very well. He said, listen, I have Pastor Davis standing here right in front of you. You know they're looking for a meeting place. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I've just suggested they buy the department store, the Please Unique. You wouldn't have a problem with that, would you? I didn't think so. Thank you so much. Hangs up the phone, says, yeah, you can have it. Okay, now, how big is this place? 8,000 square feet. All ground floor, handicap parking right next to it. The ramp for the handicapped people to go to the post office comes in front of that building. Double wide door, exactly what we need. 11 meters of windows. That's 33 feet of beautiful windows to display things. I'm going, well, okay. That's 7 times. I'm also multiplying the price of the funeral home by 7. And thinking, yeah, that could work, but how much is this going to cost? He said, well, you know, this building's been empty for 20 years, and people have not taken it yet because of the property tax issue. But churches are exempt from property tax, so that shouldn't be a problem for you. So the investment company that took over this building years ago, they are tired of paying the property tax. They're tired of paying the homeowner's share of what they have to pay for that. They mandated me to sell it at any price. So, how about 60,000 euros? I thought, now, my French is pretty good, but I must have missed a number here somewhere, 60,000 euros to buy that place. Absolutely. 55 for them, 5 for me. Let's pray. Amen. Yes, got that figured out. This was too good to be true. What's the catch? And Madame Tozzolini has already said we could buy it for 60,000 euros. Now, I called the people in the church together and I said, okay, folks, and these are the ones that had tried to buy buildings in 2007. I said, I've just been in contact with the city and they're going to allow us to buy the Please Unique for 60,000 euros. No, Paul, what's the purchase price? Not the down payment. What's the purchase price? 60,000 euros. Paul, what is the purchase price? Like my French had suddenly disappeared. They couldn't believe me. No, I said, you're right. 55,000 plus 5,000 for that's the only way they would believe me. And this was such a miracle. So I obviously went to City Hall, went right past her secretary, who just waves at me by this point, walk into Madame Tozzolini's office, and I said, now, do I understand correctly? You are going to allow us to buy the Please Unique for 60,000 euros. That would meet your needs, wouldn't you? Yes, great. You can have it. Now, another little element that you need to know, any real estate transaction in France, the city has first rights on it at the negotiated price. In other words, when the process goes through, it comes to the city council, and if they want to preempt the sale by buying it for the city at that price, they have first right on it. So you can't help but wonder, okay, yeah, we can buy it for 60,000. That's a steal. But the city could easily say, great price. And they buy it and just take it away from us. But when it came in front of City Hall, they did not exercise their right of preemption. We got it for 60,000 euros. Amazing. Now, this had been empty for 20 years. You can imagine what it looked like on the inside. It was a big room with supporting pillars that hold up the apartments on the top floor and all that, but no interior walls, no false ceiling in there. The electricity had to be totally redone. The heating system was totally oblivious. They had to redo everything. There were no bathrooms in there. There was water coming in, but you had to do everything. And with volunteer help, for the next 15 months, we did the entire interior of that building. And here's where Lakeside comes in again. You sent 3 miracle workers to come over and to do the mudding of the major part of that building. We had put all the interior walls were up. It looked, well, if you've ever seen plaster plasterboard put up with all that needs to be done. These three men, and there they are. Dennis, stand up, please. Steve, stand up, please. Dennis, these are our three. Stand up, up, up. These are our three heroes. They did an outstanding job. Oh, yeah. They did an outstanding job. They fit in with the people so well. They did the work. The French believers there, they love you guys. They want me to greet you and thank you again. That and another team that came later on from Atlanta came and did an outstanding job. And the building, we were able to purchase it. Now, how God is so good too. This had been a project since 1999. Now we're in 2013. The churches had, and the believers had been putting aside money year after year after year in order one day to hopefully, by God's grace, if the door would ever open, to buy a building. Guess how much money they had in the bank? Exactly 60,000 euros. We bought it in cash. That's unheard of in France, to buy a place like that. And now we have enough seating capacity for 180 people. We have Sunday school rooms. We have a large hall where we do our fellowship meals. We have an office. We have everything we need and above and beyond. And this is a brand new church in France. So many of my colleagues are so jealous when they see the place that God has provided for us in Pontcharra. This is a miracle. September 2015, we had the inauguration. The place was beautiful. We were ready for this. Steve and Michelle honored us with their presence by coming and representing you at our inauguration. We were at least 180 people in that building. We had a great program, and we invited the mayor, but not the same mayor, because we bought the building in November 2013. In March 2014, they had the next round of elections, and he was not reelected for a sixth term. A new mayor, Madame Tozzolini, resigned as a result of that. She was no longer there, and since has actually passed away. She developed a very aggressive cancer and died. I look back at that and I think, the Bible says that God puts people in places at times for His purpose. And we just saw that this mayor, as hard as he was at the beginning and yet as willing at the end, and Madame Tozzolini, they're literally off the scene. And we have a new city council. I went to meet the new mayor and got a meeting with him almost immediately, introduced myself, and he said, first question he said, so you're the ones that bought the department store? Yes, sir. Okay, well, I would have seen small business. And then he went on to the next topic, and I went, yes, well, we own that building, but God was so good in supplying it at the time. The inauguration went extremely well. The new mayor came. He complimented us on how we had done the work. He complimented us on the program. He was impressed with the music. And since then, my relationship with him has gone much higher. He invited our choir to sing in the outdoor Christmas market as part of the program. Now, this is the French Alps, and it's Christmas, and you're outdoors. So you can imagine how we're singing out there. We're rather brisk. But we did our program outside and said, if you want to hear more with some good hot chocolate and all the rest, right down the street, and they all know where we are, is our new building, and we'd be more than happy to invite you to the concert this evening. Over 200 people came to that. So just stories of how God is using this wonderful facility, that miracle after miracle, to allow us to have this meeting place. Just before we came back home last month, we're standing in our church. We have a big welcome area, similar to what you have in the back with coffee and treats. And this is Karen's specialty. She brings her home-baked goods every Sunday. The people come. They come really for her, then after they listen to me. But she puts on this wonderful welcome area. They are standing around, and while we're doing that, I saw one of the people, the family that had moved to Pontcharra in 2005 in the hopes of one day having a church. His name is Michael. And I went up to him and I said, well, this is really exciting, isn't it? And he was just standing there going, who would have thought what God was going to do in the city of Pontcharra? So thank you for your prayers. It's such a lesson to see what God has done, and what a lesson to me as well. Yes, I'm a veteran missionary, but I have to learn steps of faith just like anyone else. Now, by God's good sense of humor, I have a 3-minute walk from our condo to the church. I walk right down the main street, turn one street into the other big public area where the church is. Guess what I have to pass at exactly 1 minute, 30 seconds? The small little supermarket that we so desperately wanted to buy. That it just, why, Lord, it doesn't make sense. Why can't we buy this building? Why aren't you listening to our prayers? Well, am I so thankful that God in his wonderful grace was going, no, not getting that one. I've got something 7 times bigger, much less expensive, and far better suited. Of course, I didn't hear that when I was listening during this period of time. But what lesson was there to learn? When we ask for God to do his work, he will do it. He might not do it the way we think he's going to do it or the way we think he should do it, but he's going to do it in a way far, far better than we could ever ask or think. All he asks us to do is to be faithful and to walk and believe that he will get it done. And by God's grace, that's exactly what he did in the city of Pontcharra. So this morning, I have the joy of greeting you in the names of your brothers and sisters in the city of Pontcharra, who specifically said, when you go back home, please greet them in our name, in the name of Jesus, and thank them for all that you've done so that they can have their church in Pontcharra. So I greet you in the name of your brothers and sisters of Pontcharra. Thank you, Lord. Now we have a video that will show you the story in video form of what I've just said. Unfortunately, at the end, the building hasn't been finished yet. It was almost done. The slides that you saw circulating at the beginning if you came in showed the whole progress of that, and we obviously have more pictures of that. But I'd like us to watch the video. After, we'll have time for a few questions. But before I do that, team was so happy with the story of that in their latest edition of Horizons magazine featured the Pontcharra Church, and that's downtown Pontcharra. If you would like a copy of this, I have lots that I can send out. I'll give to you with the story of the church and how God planted his church in the city of Pontcharra. And obviously we have our new prayer cards, which actually look like us. They are up to date. So if you'd like, you want to be able to still recognize us with a recent prayer card, we have those for you as well. But let's go ahead and watch the video, and then after, if you have a few questions, we can take that. It's hard to trust God to open doors when all the doors seem closed. It's hard to keep believing when every opportunity seems to lead into a dead end. We're faced with frustration and discouragement. It's at times like those that we need to remind ourselves of times when God proved himself to be faithful. That was the case for my friends here at Pontcharra. For almost 10 years, they faced a time that was really, really discouraging. And I'd like to tell you a story. It's a story of how God intervened here at Pontcharra, a story that illustrates well that God is faithful. 10 years ago, the believers living in this valley caught the vision to start the first evangelical church in the city of Pontcharra. They held activities and people began to come to know the Lord, and they were encouraged. But they knew they had one major obstacle. They had to find their own meeting place. Because in the French mind, if you don't have your own meeting place, your own building, well, you're just not a legitimate group. And you ask anyone in Pontcharra, where's the church in Pontcharra? And they'll point to that building, the Catholic Church. So they looked and found 4 different places that they could purchase. 4 times they tried to purchase a place, and all 4 times city officials blocked it and closed the door. The believers became very discouraged. Why can't we have our own place? Will we ever have our own church in Pontcharra? And so discouraged, they stopped all activities for 1 year. At the end of that year, summer 2010, Karen and I moved here to Pontcharra. We wanted to encourage the believers and enter into their vision to start their own church in their own city. We were able to start Bible studies and then a monthly worship service in a local community meeting room. In the summer of 2012, a group of believers, a team from our home church in Florida, came to encourage us and to see what they could do to help us with our ministry. One thing we asked them to do was to organize prayer walks around the city. And one of those prayer walks was right around City Hall across from our parking lot. And during those times of prayer, we prayed, Lord, show us the person who is willing and has the authority to give us our own meeting place. We didn't even know who that person was. A few weeks later, I found out that that person was Madame Tozzolini. So I went to the City Hall and asked for an appointment with Madame Tozzolini. Not only did she allow me to see her right away, but she was very sympathetic to our need and promised to do all that she could to help us find our meeting place. When I told that to the people here in Pontcharra, they were astonished. Why such a radical change of heart? Could this be, after all these years of discouragement, could this finally be the beginning of a door that was open, a door that would stay open? In November, we found a storefront that was for sale, ideally located in the center of town. Had a large room that could seat about 80 people, 2 smaller rooms in the back, and the price was reasonable. At least it would meet our needs. So we called the city. I talked to Madame Tozzolini, and she said, yes, you could buy that place. Oh, wow, finally, a place that we could buy for our own. We filled out all the paperwork, sent it to the seller, and waited. And waited. Days, weeks, months went by, and the seller couldn't seem to get us the necessary paperwork. Another open door, another door slammed in our face. It just didn't make sense. We contacted a realtor who turned out to be sympathetic to our need. He pointed out that the large department store right next to the post office was for sale, much bigger and much more suitable to our needs. How we'd love to have that place, but that was one of the 4 places that the city had told us very clearly that we could not have. That door had been closed. But he explained that things had changed since then, and he called himself the city officials. They instantly told him that yes, we could have the building. We would have a building 7 times bigger than the previous one, 1/3 the price, more than adequate for our needs. And on November 26th, 2013, we signed those papers. We became the proud owners of our new building. God opened that door. We're now in the process of renovating the building. We hope to be done in the next 2 or 3 months. We have volunteers that come during the week and the weekends. They give of their time and their energy. To them, this building is not just a building, not just walls. No. This place is something that they've been waiting for, waiting upon the Lord for over 10 years. This building represents to us the faithfulness of God. What's the plan now? Well, we've made a 10-year commitment to Pontcharra, and we've just finished the 6th year. For 4 more years, we want to invest in training the leadership, turning the church over to the hands of the French people, and then we'll move on to the next assignment, which to us, we would like then to become church planting coaches and mentors to French church planters and teach them the principles of starting churches in their own city. We're also planning to retire in France, but that's down the road. Anyway, the Lord has been very good to us. We appreciate so much all the part that you have played through the team that came over, the prayer team, the work team, the prayers, the gifts that you gave for the renovations. We are indebted to you in much thankfulness, obviously to the Lord, but to you as our home church. Now, we do have a few minutes left. Are there any questions that you would like to ask? Yeah. Oh, yeah, the church is growing steadily, yeah. If everyone came now, we'd be around 80 people at the church. For a new church in France, that's remarkable, yeah. And lots of activity. Now we have a children's club. We have a Sunday school class for the children. We have a junior high youth group. We have a senior high youth group. We have women's Bible studies. The program is just expanding with French people taking over the leadership of almost all of those responsibilities. So things are moving very well. Somebody? Yeah.
Catholic pastors.
I'm sorry, yeah?
He's
not there anymore. The young man that was there got transferred to another place. He was very open. I think he was searching. He even organized a tour for his congregation, a tour of the Reformation in Geneva. I thought, now that's an interesting Catholic outing. And he invited Karen and me to go with him. That was a fascinating discussion on the bus ride home. But he got transferred to another place. The new one, he was ordained to the priesthood at the age of 65 and is new in the church. Much more traditional mindset. We respect each other. We know but there's been no real contact in that regard. But we have, at least we are respected in the community. Everyone knows we are not the Catholic Church. That's a given. But we have the mutual respect between the two groups, and that's very important in French culture. Yes, way in the back. No, we haven't started doing that yet, although, well, that wouldn't help you too much. You can download the messages, but they're all in French. So they're great messages, though, but they're in French, yeah. Myself? Yeah, I am the pastor of the church. What I do as a church planter, what we do as church planters, we run everything at the beginning because there's nothing before us. But what we do is from day one, we instill in their minds that we are here to help you become the church of Jesus Christ in this city. And we, as soon as we can, we build up the believers, train them. Obviously, those who are spiritually gifted and qualified, we begin turning leadership over to them. I have a provisionary elder board with 2 other men that help me with that. I have a provisionary church council that helps me with administrative questions. But they know that in 4 years, we're going to be totally withdrawn from that church, and it'll be theirs to run after that. So we constantly work our way out of a job, yeah. Oh yeah, that's very common, yeah. It's not uncommon to ask somebody, when they find out I'm a pastor, of course the logical question is, and you? Well, I'm a non-practicing Catholic. And I said, well then you aren't one. They said, oh yes I am, I just don't believe it. So I said, well, if you don't believe it, how can you be one? Now, I used to think that I could win arguments like that, but you're just going around in circles. In the French mind, Catholic is cultural. I'm Catholic because I'm French. But that doesn't mean I actually believe it. Actually, they probably don't. So it's not a contradiction in the French mind to be Catholic culturally and atheistic in your mindset. But once you understand that, you don't fight that battle anymore, and you just deal with them as someone who has no concept of who God is, whatever their religious title may or may not be. But that's very common in France, yeah. Yeah, France is a tough country to start churches. Actually, interestingly enough, statistics have confirmed again, they call France the graveyard of aspiring missionaries because it has the highest attrition rate of long-term missionaries in the world. By that I mean people who went to France for the long haul and said, I feel called to France and I'm going to devote my life to France, has the highest amount that didn't stay because of whatever reasons of any country in the world. Now, I wondered about that myself. I was thinking, it's not hard to live in France. We dress like this. We eat far better than you do. It's a beautiful country. The French culture is wonderful. It's a fun country to live in that regard. But what is really tiring is the apathy and indifference to anything spiritual. They're not persecuting us. They just don't care. And if you, year after year after year after year after year, keep getting the same answer of, who cares? If that means something to you, great. Doesn't mean anything to me. And that's all you hear over and over and over. That gets rather tiring. And But by God's grace, well, our hearts are in France. God put us there. We're there for the long haul. But do pray for missionaries in France, for us obviously, but others too. Pray that God would continue his work. What we're seeing is a breakthrough in that. I noticed a shift about 10 years ago. Up until that point, church plants were the American missionaries saying, we've got to get this church. Here's another city that's moved forward. And we're sort of pulling our French brothers and sisters in Christ with us. About 10 years ago, the shift came of, this is our the French saying, this is our responsibility. This is our task. And if the missionaries want to come along, they're welcome to do that. But this is our responsibility. And that's a major, major shift in France. And we're very grateful for it. Yeah.
With the growing Islamic influence.
With the Islamic presence, yeah. Locally, not yet. In the big cities like Paris, Marseille, Lyon, yes, very, very. The Islamic presence is growing as we speak. The French borders are wide open. The French have no idea what to do with it. They're hoping that the Islamic people are going to come and become French. That is not going to happen. That is extremely naive. But that's the only strategy the French government has. They don't know what to do about it. And in the bigger cities, it's becoming a major issue. Interestingly enough, they always get their meeting place. Why? Because if they don't, there's going to be serious repercussions. They say no to us, what's going to happen? Well, nothing. The mosques are going up everywhere in France. Now, in Pontcharra, we have a Muslim presence, but it's relatively small so far. But in the bigger cities, it's a major, major issue. Yeah. Somebody else?
What are some of the other religious beliefs you have to work with?
Okay, other religious beliefs. Well, number one, the culturally Catholic. Number two are the Islamic presence. Then all kinds of cults are there. The Jehovah's Witnesses are extremely active in France. Their Kingdom Hall is right down the valley from us. They are always there at the outdoor market. They have knocked on my door the one time they will. Every city I go to, they come once. Then somehow I'm on a list that they don't come back anymore. Amazing. No, the Jehovah's Witnesses are growing. Mormons I've seen rarely, but I'm not in a big city like Paris. Perhaps they're there. The other thing is Spiritism and the occult. There is a huge influence of Spiritism and the occult in France. There are more mediums and occultists in France than medical professionals. So the occult is very prevalent in France. Yeah. I think our time is about up. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this time with you to interact. If you'd like one of the magazines, prayer cards, come up and see us. Come by and visit us in France. We'd be delighted to have you come. Those of you who have been there, they can tell you that it's a beautiful country to visit. Great to see you all again. And again, thank you for your part in our ministry in France.